Now, all this week, Virgin Media Ireland have been partnering with the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland for the Donate for Dementia campaign, raising awareness through many platforms, but also sharing the story of one particular man, football legend Jack Charlton.
Yes, Jack sadly passed away in 2020, but his career and personal battle with dementia can now be seen in a new documentary, Finding Jack Charlton, airing this Sunday night at 9 o'clock on Virgin Media 1.
And joining us this morning to reflect on the legacy of such an iconic man is former Republic of Ireland goalkeeper Packie Bonner. Good morning to you, Packie.
Good morning,
it's such
Packie.
A pleasure to get the chance to chat to you today. And you're Skyping in from Scotland. How's everything over there?
Yes, I'm coming from Glasgow to you all, and it's cold today. The hailstones are flying, and it was nice for a couple of weeks, but it's just deteriorated would be the word I'd say. So I mightn't even get out for my walk today, but I have to try.
Hopefully the sun will shine for you later. Now, you participated in the Jack Charlton documentary, which will be airing this Sunday night. It's a very personal take on his life and the man that you knew well. It must have been quite emotional watching it back.
Yeah, it is, Laura. I was very emotional. My family was very emotional. We watched it, and it's a lovely depiction of him, though, because it shows him when he was young, and it also shows him now in his latter when he was in his latter days. And the difference, of course, was dramatic, but his character was still there. That's the important thing. You know, you can see those pictures of him as a young man winning World Cups, but then when he came over to ourselves and the effect that he had. And that takes back all the memories, but just obviously his latter days, it's very emotional watching him with his family. So wonderful, wonderful documentary to watch.
And when you're saying those memories, I mean, and we all have those memories of those days, and especially with the year that we've had, I mean, to look back at those times in Ireland, you must feel very proud to have been part of that. I mean, the whole country was lifted by our exploits away with the Irish football team. It really was a time of joy in Ireland.
Of course it was, and I was very lucky actually, because I was at the right age. I was 6 years old when Jack walked in for the very first time, and I was very fortunate that he actually went and picked me in the team and put me in there, and probably left me in there. Maybe the odd time he might have thought about even dropping me at times, but no, listen, it was a great journey, and I think success helps, of course, but the way that Jack sort of created the environment, the way that he made us all feel part of like it was like a club team. We all wanted to come, we all wanted to be part of the story, and we all wanted to be around him. And of course, you know, he'd be criticised maybe sometimes for the way that we played the game, maybe compared to the modern game that we watch now, and maybe there'd be certain people that would have liked us to play slightly different, but it was about getting over that barrier of winning something or games to get us into those competitions, and then the euphoria, the way that the whole nation sort of can behind us. And there's very few times that when you look back and that any particular type of sport could join all of our country together, whether you were man, woman, old, young, whether you were from a different sport or whatever, we were all in it together. And Jack created that. That's the important thing. And the way the communication skills that he had, you can just see it there in his face, and the way that he actually connected with people, for me, was dramatic.
He had huge respect for all of the members of the team that you've spoken about before. He would respect you, respect your opinion, give you his advice, but ultimately replace his trust and faith in you.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing, Laura. Absolutely. You know, I remember when I was, you know, just a young man. I was around about 2 years into it, and we were down in Manchester, and Jack came to me and said, "Listen, you're in charge. You're in charge of everything defensively." Now, nobody had ever said that to me before, and nobody had ever given me that responsibility. Of course, I had people around me like Jerry Payton and Mick McCarthy and Kevin Moore that you would almost go to and almost make sure everything was right. But, you know, that was a responsibility he gave. So you grew within the team. You grew as a bit of a leader within the gang because of that. We never got it right always, but he also said to you, if you don't get it right, you're answerable to me. So from that perspective, he was still the main man. But given that responsibility to a group of players, he said the same to Ray Houghton on offensive free kicks and that. So from that respect, I look back and I say he was the perfect leader.
But that respect led to a vote of confidence in you, which ultimately led to you being responsible for your own decisions. And just looking back to the Tumofty penalty, I mean, Alan was talking about iconic moments. Viewers have been sending in iconic moments. They remember where they were. And you've said before, it's almost a blur up until the moment the ball was placed on the ground. And then you knew what way it was going to go.
Yeah, and listen, that's the highlight. There was many highlights, but that's the highlight for we all remember. And that emotion, I keep talking about that emotion. When you get emotion in something, it stays with you for the rest of your life. And that age group, even Laurie, you're a lot younger than I am.
I remember it well.
Probably around. I remember it well. The older people remember it well. There's a lot of people now gone that lived through that journey as if it was their moment. And that when you get a country doing that, a nation doing that, there's pride in it. And Jack, I keep going back to Jack because he was the one who set the environment, and I loved the fact that Jack kept it very open. Also, he allowed the fans, our families to come. Fans would roll up to the hotel and come in the front door. I know things have changed in the modern life that we live in, and security and so on, but that's what Jack created. He sat there and he talked to people. He talked to us also about many things other than football, and he made it enjoyable. And if you have enjoyment, you have emotion around things, you remember the good things, it lives with you for the rest, absolutely for the rest of your life. And people still talk about it. They know who you're what, they know the moment, and they can describe it absolutely with clarity. Yeah.
And a story that stuck with you was a personal moment for you was at the reunion of the World Cup, and your name was called and Jack stood up and gave you a standing ovation and applause.
Well, I wouldn't call it a standing ovation, but he stood up and applauded. But I think it was the night before, actually, when we came in. It was a wonderful tribute to Jack, and it was lovely bringing all the squad. And it was great to see everybody, almost everybody, getting the opportunity to come together again, because we don't get enough reunions of it. But he was there with his wife, Pat, and John. And I walked in the night before. There was a bit of a barbecue they were having, so I was probably one of the last in. And of course, they announced that I had arrived, and people clapped. But Jack stood up from the table, which was really incredible, because it must have been the name. It must have been the name Packie, because that's probably a name that people remember also for obvious reasons. But he did stand up and he applauded, which was nice. But Jack, I had an unbelievable relationship with Jack. It was one of them professional relationships, but it was a lovely relationship in many ways. We argued many times, by the way. It wasn't always joy and so on, and I was frustrated at times with Jack. But that's the relationship. And the one thing about it was that you couldn't fall out with Jack, and Jack didn't fall out with you. We had talks, we had discussions, we had arguments. But at the end of the day, the next day it was all over, and we moved on, and that's the way it was. So looking back and looking at the documentary and listening to Paul McGrath, for example, talking about him and the way that they affected his life, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to have that effect. And I've always, people, I talk to coaches nowadays and so on, and when you can walk down the street and you meet people that you've affected in your life, and they come up to you and they're happy to meet you, that's the key. That's the key to being a leader.
Very much so. And you have, of course, experience of Alzheimer's and dementia also impacting your family. Tell us about that, Packie.
Yeah, well, listen, my mother in Donegal had dementia. My mother-in-law here in Glasgow had severe dementia, and she ended up in a home. Unfortunately, my mum, thanks to my family and the girls around her, kept her at home, and she was in a good place. But my mother-in-law was not in such a great place, and it affects the whole family. It affects people, and I think that's this week. It's great to see that dementia is getting a highlight, and they're raising money for it. My ex-manager, Billy McNeil, of course, had severe dementia, ended up in a wheelchair, and he was a great man also, similar to Jack in many ways, big stature. But when you see them ending up in that situation, and the frustration around them when they can't, like Billy McNeil couldn't talk to you at the end up. I'll tell you a very funny story about Billy. Actually, some of my colleagues took him out for a coffee, and I was supposed to go with him just to chat to him and so on, and then he couldn't speak. And he was in a wheelchair, and I couldn't go. But Andy Walker had said to him that, listen, Packie Bunner was supposed to come today, and he couldn't come. And he hadn't said anything all day, and he looked at Andy and says, Packie, hopeless. That was the only words he spoke that day. So you can tell the relationship I had with Billy also.
A very fond relationship.
So there is fun moments in this whole journey too, but there's a lot of sadness and any family that's affected with it, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, we're Virgin Media across the week doing great work in opening the conversation about it as well, Packie, and I think that's really important. And thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good, lovely, and a pleasure to be on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Packie. What a wonderful, lovely man. And a reminder that the documentary Finding Jack Charlton airs this Sunday at 9 o'clock right here on Virgin Media 1.
We're going to take a quick break now. Lots more to come. Well, it's lots of fashion after the break.